Hi there everyone, I'm Joshua Orro, the Mustang Prince, and welcome to Mustang Prince Orro Reports.
And I am Jason Roeder. I will be a guest speaker for today, and it's really great to be here. Thank you for having me, Joshua.
No problem, Jason. Also, just so you know, Jason's my first co-blogger on the show, and he's a great film major from Chapman University.
Thank you. I just graduated, so looking forward to whatever's thrown in my way.
Yes. Well, before we go on, what can you say about dragons?
That's a good question.
Well, as we all know, dragons are portrayed in numerous interesting ways everywhere. For example, in Asia, they're friendly guardians and peacemakers, and in Mexico, they're gods, and they can be sometimes responsible for weather control. And in Europe, everyone knows that they're famous for being famous monsters, and they can terrorize villages, burn crops, and kidnap their maidens.
So a very diverse range of ideas and beliefs surrounding these mythological creatures.
Yeah, like that. Plus, there are also many different films that involve dragons. I mean, before we go on to the main review, let's discuss Dreamworks' epic film from 2010, How to Train Your Dragon. Now, here's the plot of the first movie. In a world with dragons, this movie takes place on the island of Berk, somewhere in the northern countries, probably Norway or something like that. Here, about a boy named Hiccup, son of Stoic, wants to be a dragon killer like his dad, but his dad refuses. One night, during an invasion of the dragons, Hiccup catches a night fury, the rarest and unseen dragon of them, to prove to his father that he is worthy.
But while his father is away to find the nest of dragons, he allows Hiccup to start training to kill dragons. And at the same time, Hiccup trains with his newly found dragon, Toothless, since he was caught having lost part of his wing.
Yeah, but while Hiccup tries to persuade the other Vikings that the dragons are good and not evil, they have a hard time believing so. And so far, the island that they're looking for can only be found by a dragon.
Right.
So, in my opinion, it was a really interesting movie. I mean, like Kung Fu Panda, this film does not fully rely on pop cultural references. I mean, some parts reminded me of Top Gun, Aladdin, and Avatar.
I also thought it was a very heartwarming and satisfying adventure story that deserved the acclaim that it got.
So as for my rating of How to Train Your Dragon, in my eyes, it deserves a rating of 95%.
And I would give it a 92.
So, imagine our surprise when we heard news of a sequel in the works. My reaction? Oh yeah! And if it was possible, I wonder what kind of story would it tell. But after 4 years of waiting, we were deeply surprised at what it had. And that sequel has to be the subject of our review today. Released on June 13th, 2014, the movie is
How to Train Your Dragon 2!
So, let's get started. Now, it's been 5 years since Hiccup and Toothless successfully united dragons and Vikings on the island of Berk, while Astrid, Snot, Lout, and the rest of the gang are challenging each other to dragon races, which is the island's new favorite sport. The now inconsiderable pair journey through the skies, charting unmapped territories and exploring new worlds.
When one of their adventures leads to the discovery of a secret island cave that is home to hundreds of new wild dragons and the mysterious dragon rider, the two friends find themselves at the center of a battle to protect the peace. Now Hiccup and Toothless must unite to stand up for what they believe in, while recognizing that only together do they have the power to change the future of both men and dragons.
So, now that we're done explaining the summary, how was this sequel to us? Was it better than the first movie? Or heck, does it even make up for that prehistoric atrocity last year, which was the Croods? Well, in my opinion, heck yeah!
I would have no choice but to agree with you, my friend. I thought it really lived up to our expectations and went well beyond a non-stop action extravaganza, I guess, in every sense of the word.
Now let's move on to Mustang Notes, which, if you haven't seen my show yet, that's a segment where I discuss what went on during behind the scenes of this film. After the success of the first movie, the sequel was announced on April 27, 2010. How to Train Your Dragon has become Dreamworks Animation's next franchise. They said to plan to release the sequel theatrically in 2013, which Jeffrey Katzenberg actually mentioned. It was later revealed that DeBlois had started drafting the outline for a sequel in February 2010 at Skywalker Ranch during the final sound mix of the first movie. The film was originally scheduled for release on June 20th, 2014, but in August 2013, the release date was moved forward 1 week to June 13th.
So, the film was written, directed, and executive produced by Dean Dubois, the co-writer and co-director of the first film. Bonnie Arnold, the producer of the first film, also returned, while Chris Sanders, who co-directed and co-wrote the first film with Dubois, acted only as an additional executive producer this time due to his involvement with the Croods. When offered the sequel, Dubois accepted it on the condition that he can turn it into a trilogy. For the sequel, he intended to revisit the films of his youth, with The Empire Strikes Back and My Neighbor Totoro having the pivotal inspirations for this film. What I loved about The Empire Strikes Back, he said, is that it expanded Star Wars in every direction. Emotionally, its scope, characters, fun. It felt like an embellishment, and that's the goal.
While the first film was set in a generic North Sea environment, the creative team decided to focus on Norway this time around. Early in the sequel's development, about a dozen of them traveled there for a week-long research trip. There, they toured Oslo, Bergen, and the fjords. Dubois, together with Greg Taylor, Dreamworks head of feature development, and Roger Deakins, the cinematic who served as a visual consultant, then broke off from a group to visit Svalbard and see polar bears in the wild with the assistance of armed guides. So that's kind of a smart way to go. I mean, if you want to make a film that takes place in those countries, you need to go there for research purposes.
Absolutely.
Kind of like what Disney did with The Lion King, The Rescuers Down Under, and Frozen.
Dubois explained that he had learned from directing Lilo and Stitch back in 2002 that if you set an animated film in a place you want to visit, there's a chance you might get to go there. He had wanted to visit Svalbard for some time after learning of its stark beauty from a couple of backpackers he met in earlier visits to Iceland to work with post-rock band Sigur Rós.
Interesting. So, what are our personal opinions about what we like about this movie? Well, when it comes to DreamWorks animation, the animation is absolutely outstanding. I mean, most of the flying scenes make you feel like you're flying too. Plus, compared to the original film, this features more dragons than ever before, and a more established villain, which we'll get to talk about later.
Right. One thing I liked about this movie is that it is much darker than the original. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but I will say that Hiccup and his friends are forced to endure a lot over the course of this story, and especially at one point where his relationship with Toothless is really put to the test.
That's right. So, now that we're done with trivia and our personal opinions, let's move on to the cast of this fantastic movie.
All right.
Our main hero, Hiccup, son of the Viking chief, is voiced by Jay Baruchel, whom you may know from films like Tropic Thunder and Jerry Bruckheimer's version of The Sorcerer's Apprentice.
And this is the end.
His best friend and dragon companion is named Toothless, which everyone knows is the Night Fury and one of the rarest dragons. However, sometimes whenever I look at that guy, it always makes me reminds me of another character. I mean, sometimes his facial expressions remind me of Stitch. I'm kind of not surprised since, well, this is a Chris Sanders helping out, so not surprised. By the way, Jason, what do you think? What are your thoughts about Hiccup's relation with Toothless?
I think it's a very close relationship. Like, I don't want to say like a man's relationship with his pet, because it's not. It's almost like kind of like a brotherly kind of relationship. That's the best way I would describe it. Like, they connect on a personal level. They understand each other. They can kind of help each other out, especially during another scene, which I'm not going to spoil for you, where they're really able to get each other out of some pretty serious jams.
So it's kind of almost like a relationship with Pokemon in a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. That's a good comparison.
Right. But by the way, Jason, remember one of their flying maneuvers that they did in the beginning?
Oh, yes.
Like, one of the names they made up in that one kind of reminds me of something from my childhood.
What is that?
Remember how they said the itchy armpit?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Well, something from my childhood. Well, I'll let my viewers see this clip right over here.
Alright, my little furball, now try the itchy armpit on for size.
Surprised they made that up after that game.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that's a very awkward moment, to be sure.
Sure. Let's move on.
Stoic the Vast, the chieftain of the Viking tribe, and Hiccup's father, is voiced by Gerard Butler, who is known for being in films like 300, Phantom of the Opera, and Nim's Island. He rides his new dragon, Skull Crusher, a Rumblehorn.
Now, in my opinion, Stoic, his attitude has improved from the first film. Like, he's not as stubborn as he used to be.
Yeah, he's a much more sentimental person. He's more in tune with his emotions. I guess you could say he's still a little bit blind toward what his son wants, but he's a little bit more in tune with his more sensitive side.
Okay, that's good. Next up is Gobber the Belch, Stoic's closest friend and seasoned Viking warrior, who's voiced by Craig Ferguson. Who was in films like Brave and the 2011 film of Winnie the Pooh.
Mm-hmm.
He rides his new dragon, which is named Grump, which looks kind of like a lazy hog burple, which almost looks like a hippopotamus in a way.
Yes, that's the kind of dragon I want. I want to fly that kind of dragon. That fits my personality in a nutshell.
Really? Why?
I don't know. Sometimes I could just be lazy and kind of be unfocused. That's not my best side, but somehow there's always something nice about being lazy, and that dragon fits all the good sides about it, and that's who I would fly.
Hiccup's girlfriend, Astrid, is voiced by America Ferrera. Now her dragon is a deadly natter who she names Stormfly. Now, to be honest, I think she deserves a lot more character development, same as Hiccup. I mean, in the first film, she was like a no-nonsense character and would later become a love interest when she finds out Hiccup's secret. But in this film, she becomes more supportive towards Hiccup and the other guys.
Yeah, that's true. We didn't get that much of a development between Hiccup and Astrid. Not as much as the first film, and I think that was probably the one thing that I wish they could have done a little bit differently.
Yeah, but still, she's more romantic towards him, like, especially since she does, like, mimic him during one part of the movie.
Absolutely. That's true.
Now, the rest of the Dragon Riders are as follows.
Snout Jorgensen is voiced by Jonah Hill. He rides his dragon Hookfang, a monstrous nightmare.
Yeah, the one that ignites itself.
Right.
We also have Fish Legs, voiced by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, who rides a Gronkle he names Meat Lug. Next we get Tough Nut and Rough Nut, voiced by T.J. Miller and Kristen Wiig. They share a two-headed, hideous zippleback they name Barf and Belch.
And now it's time for us to move on to the new characters that are featured in this movie.
That's right. Now our first new character happens to be Hiccup's long-lost mother, Valka, who's voiced by Cate Blanchett. She was from films like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit trilogies. Also from films like The Curious Case of Benjamin Button and, screw the haters for this, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
And she was recently nominated for, actually she recently won an Academy Award for her performance in Woody Allen's Blue Jasmine.
That's neat. Okay, in this film, Valka is like a reclusive vigilante from the Arctic. She rides her own dragon named Cloud Jumper, which is a storm cutter. So, Jason, what do you think about Valka?
Oh, I thought she was a wonderful character. I thought I could really see a lot of Hiccup's personality, like his love for dragons and devotion to take care of them through his mother. Like, you really get the sense, like you don't see that kind of connection with his father. You really understand, like, where who Hiccup really is comes from.
Yeah, plus her backstory was quite shocking in that like.
Absolutely, it was.
But still, what are your thoughts about like the dragons that live in her so-called lair?
Oh yeah, I mean, I thought that they played a huge role in the story, especially the Alpha Dragon, where all of the dragons within that environment listen to his will. I mean, it plays a huge role in later parts of the story. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. However, to be honest, I kind of like the design of the Alpha. I mean, like, it almost looks like a giant mammoth, but the idea of a dragon with ice breath is kind of rare.
Yeah, that's something you really don't see in dragons.
However, what are your thoughts of the infant dragons who are immune to the Alpha's power?
Oh, I thought they were adorable. I thought they were like the perfect foil for the Alpha, again, in later parts of the story.
That's good.
Eret is voiced by Kit Harington from Game of Thrones and Pompeii. You know nothing, Jon Snow. A dragon trapper who sells captured dragons to Drogo.
Yeah. So, like, Jason, what do you think about Aaron anyway? Like,
He's a very funny character. Like, I guess you could say he's almost like the comic relief in some ways.
sure. I mean, he can be a little despicable at times.
Yes.
But however, there's one thing a little distracting though. Like like when one of the twins gets a little bit of a dreamy feel about him.
Oh, yeah. I do.
Yeah. Plus, there's like his transition from antagonist to supporting character is a nice twist for him.
It is. I agree with that. I'm interested to see how he's going to be in the third movie.
Me too. Last but not least, in our opinion, the best new character happens to be the new villain, Drago Bloodfist, a dragon hunter voiced by Digimon Hansu. Who's been in another film about dragons before this movie, which happens to be Aragon. Now, in my eyes, Drago was a way better villain than that huge dragon from the first movie.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he has more appearances than that dragon, and he has an enormous army, and he even has a secret weapon, which is like a dark version of the Alpha.
Oh, yeah.
So, Jason, what are your thoughts on Drago?
I'd just be repeating you. A much better villain than the first film for sure. Great backstory, perfect weapons against Hiccup and his friends. He posed a much greater threat, I believe, than the first villain ever did.
Yeah, but the idea of a dragon that mind controls other dragons is pretty dark.
And terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
Plus, the fight between that creature and the Alpha kind of reminds me of something from Pokemon in a little bit.
Which one?
I mean, it almost reminds me of a fight between Palkia and Dialga from the Rise of Darkrai in a little bit. Or the fight between Groudon and Kyogre from the Emerald version of Pokemon.
Okay.
Now it's time to move on to our final words of this movie. Overall, How to Train Your Dragon 2 is an incredibly epic sequel. It has great animation, new dragons, great action scenes, and cool visual effects.
Not only that, it is an excellent coming-of-age story with great moments delivered by old and new characters, as well as some powerful lessons about stepping up to meet the challenges thrown in front of you.
That's great. And as for our ratings, I give this film 100%, while Jason gives it
95.
Okay. Well, that's all for now, viewers. I'd like to thank Jason Roeder for joining me to help me blog this epic sequel.
Thank you so much for having me, man.
No problem. And hope we can do another one soon.
Oh, you bet.
And as for the rest of you, thanks for joining us today. And be sure to join me next time for my blog on Mustang Prince Orro reports. Till next time, Mustang Power!